Live NFL trivia every Wednesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge for a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. I want to give you a hypothetical scenario. Suppose you have a bunch of friends over, and it's game night. You guys are going to spend the whole night just playing a bunch of different board games and card games. You're going to play a nice game of Uno in a bit. But first, because you want everyone to hate each other and want to destroy friendships, you're going to start off with a nice game of Monopoly. You've got 2 of the light blue properties, and you want the 3rd. However, your friend owns the 3rd, so you can't get a Monopoly. So you start talking about trades, as you try to acquire the 3rd light blue from your friend, so you can start buying houses and charging more for the rent. And then, you propose an interesting offer. You tell your friend that if she gives you the light blue, that when you play Uno, you won't play a single draw 4 card on her. Now on the surface, this seems highly illegal, and if I was involved in a game night that ran like this, where the house rules were this ridiculous, I would bolt immediately. Making trades between 2 completely different games seems, well, not allowed. You can't make trades in Monopoly for future promises in games that aren't even Monopoly. So why do I bring this crazy scenario and hypothetical trade up? Because in 1997, some team actually tried that in order to play in a bowl game. And the crazy part? Not only was this completely legal and was permitted wholeheartedly, but it actually worked. This is the University of Cincinnati, and in 1997, in an effort to get invited to a bowl game, they tried something incredibly unique, incredibly crazy, and incredibly bizarre. And it had nothing to do with their football team whatsoever. This is the story behind the Cincinnati Bearcats, the 1997 Humanitarian Bowl, and the craziest bowl scenario in Cincinnati history. Before I talk about the actual proposal that Cincinnati made to try and make it to a bowl game, we need some context to understand what Cincinnati's bowl situation was like before this, as well as how they were playing to even be considered for a bowl. The year is 1997, and after what felt like years of being one of the laughingstocks and cellar dwellers of college football, the Bearcats were having one of their best seasons ever. When the regular season came to an end, Cincinnati was one of the best teams in Conference USA, and had a 7-4 record overall, winning all of their non-conference games, including an 18-point win on the road against Boston College, a 34-31 win on the road against Miami, Ohio, who went 8-3 and had a ranked win, and a dominant 34-7 win over Kansas, as in, the same Kansas team that had a winning record that season against unranked opponents. Led by a stout defense that finished inside the top 35 of the nation, and held their opponents to single digits in 3 games, a great special teams unit led by punt returner Tinker Keck, who led the entire NCAA with 577 punt return yards and 4 punt return touchdowns, and a solid offense led by dual-threat quarterback Chad Plummer, who could always beat you with his legs, and the Bearcats were looking pretty legit. And we have to understand something about Cincinnati football, historically speaking, before going any further. It might be hard to believe now, seeing as they're going to be in the Big 12, seeing as they've been consistently great over the last few years, seeing as they've gone 52-9 since 2018, winning an astonishingly high 85.2% of the time, and seeing as in 2021, they became the first team ever from the group of 5 to make it to the college football playoff. However, for much of their history, Cincinnati football absolutely stunk. A season like this for them, where they were 7-4 overall in the regular season and had a chance at going bowling, was almost unprecedented. The last time they got to go to a bowl game was during the 1950 season, when they played West Texas State in the Sun Bowl and lost 14-13. It had been nearly half a century since the Bearcats went bowling. For some perspective on how long ago that was, the last time Cincinnati made it to a bowl game, Disneyland was still years away from opening, there was a team in the NBA called the Indianapolis Olympians, and we were just a few months removed from the start of the Korean War. The Bearcats had an absurdly long bowl drought that maybe, just maybe, they could break in 1997. But it was not going to be easy, especially since the Bearcats didn't exactly play in a prestigious conference, and didn't win the conference, so they didn't have an automatic bowl tie-in. It's not like today where if you go 7-4, there's no way you're not going bowling if you want to play in one. In 1997, you only had 20 bowls. The only hope that Cincinnati seemed to have at making it to a bowl game was with one of the 2 new bowl games that was added that season, with the Motor City Bowl and the Humanitarian Bowl. The Motor City Bowl seemed to be out of the picture. That bowl game had quite a few possibilities to pair from an at-large perspective against the MAC champion that they were required to take. And considering the fact that the Motor City Bowl was looking at schools like Michigan State, Ole Miss, Notre Dame, and Iowa, it's not too much of a surprise that Cincinnati wasn't really being considered. As Ken Hoffman, the assistant executive director of the Motor City Bowl, said on the Bearcats and the possibility that they play in this game, Cincinnati is not at the top of our list. We've told them where we stand, but they've done a great job promoting their program. Translation, bless your heart. That left the Humanitarian Bowl all the way out in Boise, Idaho. Cincinnati already didn't have a large fan base. They were only averaging somewhere in the ballpark of 20,000 fans per game, and their alumni base wasn't particularly strong. So to have them travel all the way out to Idaho? Don't get me wrong. For the first bowl appearance in half a century, some fans would absolutely make the trip. But would it be enough for the bowl game to fill the stands and be profitable, as opposed to a team with a much more geographic fit on the West Coast, like Oregon, Utah, or Washington, all of whom were being heavily considered according to Steve Schmader, the president of the bowl game? And would it be enough to help them out when you realize that bowl games have a minimum attendance threshold to meet? Yeah, the odds aren't exactly in Cincinnati's favor, as just about every chip in the book is stacked against them. If Cincinnati was going to play in their first bowl game in nearly half a century, they were going to need to pull off something incredible. They were going to need to make an offer that Boise could not refuse. The bad news was that, as we've seen thus far, their football team didn't really have anything to offer that was particularly enticing. The good news? Well, Cincinnati has more sports than just football. Because the Bearcats, in a different sport, had a team that people wanted to see, and that had drawn national attention for quite some time. They had a little something called their men's basketball team. Throughout the 1990s, Cincinnati was one of the best schools in the entire nation in college basketball. Led by head coach Bob Huggins, the Bearcats consistently found themselves atop their conference, in the NCAA tournament, and inside the AP Top 25. Entering the 1997-98 season, the Bearcats made it to the tournament in 6 consecutive seasons, made it out of the first round in 5 of those 6 years, made it to the Elite 8 in 3 of those years, and even made it to the Final Four during the 1991-92 season. Over the previous 6 seasons, the Bearcats had gone 155-44, winning just a hair under 78% of the games that they played. And during that most recent season in 1996-97, they finished the season as the number 10 ranked team in the country, went 26-8, and entered the season as the preseason number 1 ranked team in the nation. Thanks to the great play of Danny Fortson, the Conference USA Player of the Year and a consensus first team All-American, the Bearcats won the regular season championship for Conference USA, got a number 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, and at no point during the season did they ever fall lower than number 12 in the AP poll. In other words, just like they were throughout the rest of the 1990s, the Bearcats were nothing short of dominant. So that's when Cincinnati officials got to thinking, what if we used the basketball team to help our football team out? What if we worked out a deal where the basketball team does something in exchange for the football team getting what seemed like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? With that, Cincinnati Athletic Director Bob Goyne had a rather interesting proposal. If you, as a Humanitarian Bowl, allow us to play in your bowl game, then in return, we will schedule a home-and-home basketball series with Boise State, allowing you to see a ranked opponent and one of the best teams in the nation and get tons of ticket revenue from it. I should note that this was an extremely rare opportunity for Boise State. Most of their non-conference games were against schools on the West Coast. They hadn't played a ranked opponent in the regular season since they played a number 21 ranked Oregon State team in 1989. And they hadn't played a ranked opponent at home in the regular season since they hosted a number 5 ranked Wyoming team on December 22nd, 1987, a decade before this. In other words, you let us play in this bowl game, and we'll return the favor and give you one of the most anticipated and biggest non-conference regular season basketball games in your school's history. Keep in mind, Cincinnati did not care about the money with this game. They were fully prepared if they got to the Humanitarian Bowl and the officials actually took this offer to play in the game at a loss. That did not matter to them. Not when you haven't played in a bowl game in half a century. As Goins said, we don't view a bowl as making our budget for us. If it helps us get more national visibility, that's worth a lot of money. There's a lot of ways for a program to benefit that don't have to come in hard dollars. My feeling is, that's an important investment. And that's why Goins was willing to do this and be extremely bold with this plan in order to get his Bearcats at this bowl game. As he said on the idea of a home-and-home with Boise State, that's an investment that's worth it. Our basketball team's attractive. Coach Huggins is very cooperative. And I know I speak for him to say he would do what he could do to enhance the program. If that would help the football program, I think we would do that. And just like that, Cincinnati, which was a complete long shot to play in the Humanitarian Bowl for the aforementioned reasons, was back in the picture. Because this idea was so intriguing to Humanitarian Bowl President Steve Schmader that he started talking about what a great idea it was and how they could plan the home-and-home around the Humanitarian Bowl as a way to get more fans to the game, saying, that way, our local fans could see a quality team such as Cincinnati, whereas that possibility usually would not happen. And in the end, instead of picking a West Coast team like a lot of people thought they would, the Humanitarian Bowl decided that this proposal by Cincinnati involving their basketball team was so good that they would be willing to take a chance on having the football team play in this game. For the first time since the 1950 season, Cincinnati was going bowling. And it was all because of their basketball team. Even though the football team had to put in the work to be good enough to become bowl eligible, and they had to provide the alley, the basketball team threw down the oop. And for what it's worth, Cincinnati made the most of this bowl trip, beating Utah State handily, winning the first ever Humanitarian Bowl by a final score of 35-19, and leading at 21-0 at the half and 28-0 midway through the third quarter. So the final score did not reflect how close this game actually was. The basketball team also held up their end of the bargain, as on December 30th, 1999, on the same day as the Humanitarian Bowl for some reason, Boise State hosted Cincinnati, and the Bearcats won 78-46. The two teams then met in Cincinnati in 2000. As a side note, to learn more about another bizarre incident in Humanitarian Bowl history, click the card in the upper right corner. Sometimes, you have to get creative to get what you're looking for in life, and to get what you want. And when it comes to bowls, no team and no situation exemplifies that more than what the Cincinnati Bearcats did in 1997. We've seen situations where the football and the basketball team are seemingly competing against each other and are arch rivals, as was the case with Utah a few years before, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. So to see a moment of synergy like this is kind of incredible. Because in 1997, Cincinnati finally broke their near half-century-long bowl drought, even if it took a little help from their friends to do so. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. So you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.